The stars were burning. Ambassador Lyriel watched from the observation deck as another city turned to ash on the planet below. Her thin, blue hands pressed against the cold glass. Her large, dark eyes reflected the orange flames that spread across the night side of her world. 3 days ago, the Kreth swarm had arrived. 3 days ago, her people had known peace. Now they only knew death. The Valari were not built for war. Their bodies were thin and light. Their bones were hollow like birds. They had evolved on a world where the gravity was gentle, where the weather was always mild, where no predators hunted them. They had never needed to fight. They had never learned how. And now, they were dying. "Ambassador," said a soft voice behind her. "The council is waiting." Lyriel turned to see her assistant, a young Valari named Torin. His blue skin was pale with fear. His hands were shaking. "How many?" she asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. Torin looked down. 3 billion. In 3 days. Lyriel closed her eyes. 3 billion of her people, gone, consumed by the swarm like they were nothing, like they were food. She walked to the council chamber. The room was filled with holographic images of leaders from across the galactic concord. There were the tall, thin Morvani with their silver skin. There were the insect-like Cheetak, who clicked their mandibles nervously. There were the gaseous Nebulons floating in their containment spheres. None of them would help. "The Concord sends its deepest sympathies," said the Morvani representative. His voice was calm and cold. "But we cannot risk our fleets against the Kreth. They have never been defeated. To fight them is to die." "Then we will die!" Lyriel shouted. She never shouted. Valari were peaceful, quiet, gentle. But she was watching her world burn. "We are already dying. We need help." "There is no help to give," said the Cheetak ambassador. "The Kreth swarm has consumed over 100 worlds. No species has ever stopped them. We are sorry, but we must protect our own people." One by one, the holographic images disappeared. The Morvani, the Cheetak, the Nebulons, all of them. They offered words of sadness. They offered nothing else. Lyriel stood alone in the empty chamber. Torin approached her slowly. "There is one other option," he said quietly, "but the council has forbidden it." Lyriel looked at him. "Tell me." "The quarantine system. Sol." A chill ran through Lyriel's body. Every species in the galaxy knew about Sol. Every child learned the stories. The third planet from that yellow star was called Earth, and the creatures that lived there were called humans, the Deathworlders. Earth was a nightmare world. The gravity was crushing. The weather was violent and unpredictable. Storms that could destroy cities, earthquakes that split the ground open, volcanoes that bled fire. The planet itself seemed designed to kill everything on it. But life had survived there anyway. Life had adapted. Life had become strong. Humans were the result. They were built from millions of years of death. Their bodies could heal wounds that would kill any other species. Their immune systems fought off diseases constantly. They could survive in freezing cold and burning heat. They could go days without water, weeks without food. And they were violent. Oh, they were violent. The records showed that humans had spent most of their history killing each other. War after war after war. They had developed weapons that could crack planets. They had built machines designed only for destruction. When the Galactic Concord had first made contact with Earth, they had been horrified. Here was a species that treated death like a game. Here were creatures that ran toward danger instead of away from it. Here were monsters wearing the faces of intelligent beings. The Concord had quarantined them. For 40 years, no one had contacted Earth. No one had traded with them. No one had spoken to them. They had hoped the humans would stay on their death world forever. "I cannot," Lyriel whispered. "The beacon is forbidden." "If I activate it?" "If you do not activate it," Torin said gently, There will be no one left to punish you. Lyriel looked out the window again. Another explosion lit up the surface of her world. More of her people dying, more families ending, more futures lost. She walked to the forbidden room. The door had not been opened in decades. Dust covered everything. In the center stood a simple console with a single button, the beacon to Sol. Lyriel pressed it. Far across the galaxy, in the quarantine system, a signal reached the planet Earth. It traveled through the atmosphere and found its way to a massive ship in orbit. The ship was called the UES Horizon. Admiral Park Do-yun was sleeping when the alert came. He was a man of 60 years with gray hair and a face marked by old scars. He had fought in the last human war, decades ago. He had seen things that still visited him in his dreams. He listened to the alien message. A soft voice speaking in broken galactic common, pleading, begging, crying for help. When it ended, he sat in silence for a long moment. Commander Kim Yuna entered his quarters. She was younger than him, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and short black hair. She had been his second in command for 15 years. "You heard it?" Do-yun asked. "I heard it. The Valari. They are dying. The Concord quarantined us. They called us monsters. They said we were too dangerous to exist among civilized species." Do-yun stood slowly. His old bones ached. "And now they want our help." Yuna's expression did not change. "The Kreth have killed 3 billion Valari in 6 days. The Concord species are too afraid to fight. The Valari have no one else, so they called the monsters." Yes. Do-yun walked to his window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an innocent species was being slaughtered. Somewhere out there, people were dying because no one would stand up for them. He thought about what it meant to be human. He thought about all the wars his species had fought, all the blood they had spilled, all the terrible things they had done to each other. But he also thought about the other things. The times when humans had run into burning buildings to save strangers. The times when soldiers had died protecting people they had never met. The times when ordinary people had stood against evil, even when they were afraid. Humans were violent, yes, but they also chose who they were violent for. "Wake the fleet," Admiral Do-yun said quietly. "All of them. Every ship we have." Yuna nodded. "And what do I tell them?" Do-yun turned to face her. In his eyes was something old and fierce, something that had slept for 40 years and was now waking up. "Tell them the galaxy called us monsters. Tell them they locked us away because they were afraid of what we could do." He paused. "Tell them it is time to show them what monsters do when the innocent cry for help." The message went out across Earth. Every military base, every orbital station, every sleeping ship. The Deathworlders were going to war. The shipyards of Earth had been silent for 40 years. Giant metal structures floated in orbit around the blue planet. Inside them, hundreds of warships sat waiting in the darkness. Their engines were cold. Their weapons were sleeping. Their crews had gone home long ago. Now the lights were coming back on. Captain Choi Minho stood on the bridge of the destroyer Gwangeto. He was 35 years old. He had never fought in a real battle. None of his crew had. They had trained. They had practiced. They had run simulations 1,000 times. But they had never faced a real enemy. Today, that would change. "All systems coming online, Captain," said Lieutenant Bayek Sujin. She was his tactical officer, a woman with quick hands and a quicker mind. She had spent the last 3 hours running combat simulations against the Kreth bioships. The results were not encouraging. "How bad?" Minho asked. "Bad. The Kreth ships are organic. They heal themselves. They adapt to weapons quickly. And there are millions of them." She looked up from her console. "We have 200 ships. Then we will have to make each ship count." Around the Gwangaeto, other destroyers were waking up. Cruisers, frigates, carriers loaded with fighter craft. The entire Terran defense fleet was coming to life for the first time in 4 decades. At the center of the formation floated the flagship, the Sejong the Great. It was the largest warship humans had ever built, 2 kilometers long, armed with weapons that could crack moons. It was a machine built for one purpose: to end things. Admiral Park Do-yun stood on its bridge, surrounded by his war council. General Han Woo-jin commanded the Marine divisions. He was a big man with thick arms and a shaved head. His family had been soldiers for 5 generations. Fighting was in his blood. Dr. Shin Yoonji was the fleet xenobiologist. She was small and quiet, with glasses that she constantly pushed up her nose. She had spent her entire life studying why Earth created such strong life. Now she would use that knowledge against an enemy. Commander Kim Yuna stood at Do-hyun's side as she always did. Her face was calm, but her eyes were watching everything. "Tell me about the Kreth," Do-hyun said. Yoonji activated a holographic display. An image of a Kreth bioship appeared. It looked like a living nightmare, part insect, part jellyfish, part something that should not exist. It had no metal, no technology, just flesh and hunger. "The Kreth swarm is a hive mind," Yoonji explained. "Millions of creatures all connected to one consciousness. They do not think like we do. They only consume. They land on a planet, eat everything alive, and move on. They have destroyed over 100 worlds. Weaknesses?" asked General Woo-jin. "They have never needed any. Every species they have met evolved on paradise worlds. Gentle gravity, stable climates, no predators. Those species never learned to fight. The Kreth simply washed over them like a wave." "And us?" Yuna asked. Yoonji smiled. It was not a nice smile. "We are different. Earth tried to kill us for millions of years. Ice ages that froze half the planet. Diseases that killed billions. Predators that hunted us in the dark. Volcanoes. Earthquakes, meteor strikes that ended entire species." She pushed her glasses up. "But we survived. Every time our planet tried to kill us, we adapted. We got stronger. We learned to fight back. Our bodies heal wounds that would kill other species. Our immune systems battle infections constantly. We can eat almost anything. We can survive almost anywhere." She looked at the image of the Kreth bioship. "The Kreth have never met a species like us. They have never met a species that was forged in death. They have no idea what is coming." Do-hyun nodded slowly. "How long until we reach Velari space?" 48 hours at maximum speed," Yuna replied. "The Velari may not have 48 hours. Then we will have to be fast." The fleet entered hyperspace. 200 ships carrying 80,000 humans, soldiers, engineers, pilots, medics, all of them children of a world that had tried its best to kill them. On the Gwangaeto, Captain Minho gathered his crew. They stood before him in neat rows. Young faces, scared faces, brave faces. He looked at each of them and felt proud. "I know you are afraid," he said. His voice was steady. "I am afraid too. We are going to fight an enemy that has never been defeated. We are going to see things that we have only seen in nightmares. Some of us will not come home." He paused. "But I want you to remember something. Remember why we are going. There is a species out there called the Velari. They are peaceful. They are gentle. They have never hurt anyone. And they are dying because no one will help them." Minho stepped closer to his crew. "The galaxy looks at us and sees monsters. They quarantined us because they were afraid of what we could do. And maybe they were right to be afraid. Maybe we are dangerous." His voice grew stronger. "But we get to choose what we are dangerous for. We get to choose who we protect. Today, we choose to protect the innocent. Today, we show the galaxy that humans do not only know how to kill, we also know how to save." In the back of the crowd, a young Marine named No Hyung listened. She was barely 20 years old. She had joined the military because she wanted to see the stars. She had never imagined she would be going to war. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was beating fast. But when she looked at the faces around her, she saw something that made her feel stronger. She saw determination. She saw courage. She saw people who were scared but who were going anyway. That was what it meant to be human, she realized. Not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. In the medical bay of the Sejong the Great, Dr. Yoonji was preparing her team. She knew that many of the soldiers leaving today would come back broken. She knew that her hands would be covered in blood before this was over. But she also knew that every life she saved was a victory. Every soldier she healed could go back and save more. The Kreth think they are facing just another soft species, she told her team. They think we will break like all the others. They do not understand what we are. She held up a small vial of red liquid. Human blood. This blood carries oxygen more efficiently than any other species we have encountered. These cells can regenerate damaged tissue. This immune system fights off infections that would kill a Valari in hours. She set the vial down. We are not soft. We are the hardest thing this galaxy has ever seen. 48 hours later, the fleet dropped out of hyperspace above Valari Prime. Admiral Do-Yun looked at the planet below. It was beautiful. Blue oceans, green forests, gentle clouds, a paradise world. But there was smoke rising from the surface. Cities were burning. The Kreth were already there. All ships, Do-Yun said into the fleet-wide channel. This is Admiral Park. The enemy is below us. The people we came to save are dying as we speak. We have no time for speeches, no time for fear. He stood straighter. We are humans. We are Deathworlders, and today we remind the galaxy why they feared us. The fleet began its descent toward the planet. The war for Valaris had begun. The Valari had prayed for help. They had not prayed for this. When the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace, every sensor on the Valari orbital station went wild. Alarms screamed. Screens flashed with warnings. The Valari officers stared at their displays with wide, terrified eyes. 200 ships, each one a fortress of metal and death. The Valari ships were beautiful. They had smooth curves and soft colors. They looked like works of art floating among the stars. They were designed for exploration, for trade, for peaceful journeys between worlds. The human ships were ugly. They were angular blocks of dark metal covered in weapons. No curves, no beauty, just armor and guns and engines designed to move fast and hit hard. They looked like what they were, machines built for killing. Ambassador Lyriel stood at the observation window, watching the fleet approach. Her thin body was trembling. She had called these creatures. She had invited them into her home. And now, looking at their terrible ships, she wondered if she had made a horrible mistake. "Ambassador," said Torin from behind her, "the human admiral is requesting permission to dock." Lyriel closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "Grant it." The shuttle that landed in the station's bay was as ugly as the warships. It hit the deck hard, and Lyriel felt the impact through the floor. The doors opened with a hiss of air, and the humans stepped out. Lyriel had seen pictures of humans before. Every species had studied them after the quarantine. But pictures did not prepare her for the reality. They were massive. The average human stood nearly twice as tall as a Valari. Their bodies were thick with muscle and heavy bones. They moved with a confidence that spoke of absolute certainty in their own strength. Admiral Park Do-Hyun walked at the front of the group. He was older than the others, with gray hair and deep lines on his face. His eyes found Lyriel immediately. And she felt like a small animal being watched by a predator. But then something strange happened. The Admiral bowed. It was a formal, respectful bow. When he rose, his expression was gentle. Ambassador Lyriel, he said. His voice was deep but soft. I am Admiral Park Do-yun of the Terran Defense Fleet. We received your message. We came as fast as we could. Lyriel opened her mouth, but no words came out. She had expected monsters. She had expected violence and threats. She had not expected politeness. You came, she finally whispered. You actually came. You asked for help. We answered. Commander Kim Yuna stepped forward. She was wearing heavy combat armor that made her look even more intimidating. But her voice was gentle when she spoke. Ambassador, we know what the galaxy says about us. We know you must be afraid. But we did not come here to conquer you. We came to help you fight the Kreth. Lyriel looked at these strange creatures, these Deathworlders that everyone feared, and she saw something she had not expected to see. She saw kindness. The other species refused to help, she said quietly. They said fighting the Kreth was suicide. They said no one could defeat them. Admiral Do-hyun smiled. It was a tired smile, but there was warmth in it. The other species are soft. They evolved on gentle worlds where everything was easy. They do not understand what it means to fight against impossible odds. He looked out the window at the burning planet below. Humans know. Our world tried to kill us every day for millions of years. Ice ages, plagues, predators, disasters, and we survived all of it. We learned that survival is not about being the strongest. It is about refusing to give up. While the leaders talked, the rest of the humans spread out through the station. Soldiers in heavy armor walked past terrified Valari civilians. Medical teams set up emergency hospitals. Engineers began checking the station's systems. Sergeant Yoon Ji-woo found herself in a residential area where Valari families had gathered for safety. She was a small woman by human standards, but she still towered over the fragile blue aliens. A group of Valari children huddled in a corner, watching her with huge, frightened eyes. Their parents tried to shield them, but the children were curious. They had never seen a human before. Ji-woo slowly removed her helmet. Her black hair fell around her face. She smiled at the children and knelt down to be closer to their height. Hello, she said softly. My name is Ji-woo. What are your names? The children were silent for a moment. Then the bravest one, a small girl with pale blue skin, stepped forward. You are a human, the girl said. From the Death World. Yes, I am. Are you going to hurt us? Ji-woo felt her heart break a little. These children had only known peace their entire lives. And now they were afraid of everything, even the people who had come to help them. No, she said gently. I am here to protect you. That is why we came, to keep you safe. The little girl reached out and touched Ji-woo's hand. Her blue fingers were cold and delicate against Ji-woo's warm skin. You are so warm, the girl said with wonder, and your hand is so heavy. How do you carry it? Ji-woo laughed softly. I am used to it. On my world, everything is heavy. We had to become strong just to walk around. Is it true that your world is dangerous? That everything there tries to kill you? It is true. We have animals with sharp teeth that hunt in the night. We have storms that can destroy cities. We have diseases that live inside our bodies and try to make us sick. Ji-woo smiled. But we fight back. We always fight back. The little girl tilted her head. Why do you fight? Why not just run away? It was a good question. Ji-woo thought about it carefully. Because some things are worth fighting for, she finally said. Our families, our friends, our homes. If we ran away every time something was hard, we would have nothing left. So we learned to stand our ground. The girl looked at Ji-woo for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was the first smile Ji-woo had seen from any Valari since arriving. I am glad you came, the girl said. Even if you are scary. Jiwoo laughed. I will try to be less scary. Back in the command center, Admiral Do-hyun was meeting with the Valari military commanders. There were not many of them left. Most had died in the first days of the invasion. General Torak was the highest-ranking survivor. He was old for a Valari, his blue skin faded to pale gray. He looked exhausted and defeated. Our fleet is gone, Torak said quietly. We had 30 ships. The Kreth destroyed them all in the first wave. We have nothing left to fight with. You have us, Admiral Do-hyun replied. 200 ships against millions of Kreth? With respect, Admiral, it is hopeless. The swarm has never been defeated. They will consume us all. Commander Yuna stepped forward. The Kreth have never faced humans before. They have no idea what they are dealing with. Torak looked at her with sad eyes. You are brave, Commander, but bravery is not enough. The Kreth do not feel fear. They do not retreat. They simply keep coming until there is nothing left. Admiral Do-hyun walked to the window and looked down at the burning world. Somewhere down there, millions of Valari were dying. Somewhere down there, the Kreth were feeding. General, he said slowly, let me tell you something about humans. We have a long history of fighting enemies that should have destroyed us. Enemies that were bigger, stronger, more numerous. And we won. Not always. Not every time. But enough times to survive. He turned to face the old Valari general. We won because we do not know when to quit. We won because we would rather die fighting than live running. We won because when everything seems hopeless, that is when humans fight the hardest. Do-hyun put his hand on Torak's thin shoulder. I cannot promise we will win. I cannot promise that all of your people will survive. But I can promise you this. We will fight for you as if you were our own. And the Kreth will learn what it means to face a species that was born in death. 3 days. They had 3 days before the main Kreth swarm arrived. 3 days to prepare for the fight of their lives. The sky turned black with the swarm. Millions of Kreth bioships dropped out of hyperspace above Valari Prime. They blocked out the stars. They filled every screen and every sensor. They were a living tide of death, and they had come to feed. On the bridge of the Sejong the Great, Admiral Park Do-hyun watched them come. His face showed no fear. His hands did not shake. He had been waiting for this moment for 40 years. All ships, he said into the fleet channel. This is Admiral Park. The enemy is here. Remember what we are fighting for. Behind us are 7 billion Valari who cannot defend themselves. They called for help, and we answered. Today we show the galaxy what that means. He paused. Today we show them what humans are made of. The human fleet spread into battle formation. 200 ships against millions. It should have been suicide. It should have been hopeless. But humans had never been good at math. All weapons free, Do-hyun commanded. Fire at will! The space between the two fleets exploded with light. Human weapons were brutal things, plasma cannons that could melt through organic flesh, missile swarms that carried nuclear fire, rail guns that launched metal at speeds that turned matter into energy. The first wave of Kreth bioships died by the thousands. Their organic hulls burst open, their flesh burned in the cold vacuum. For a moment it seemed like the humans were winning. Then the swarm adapted. The Kreth were a hive mind. When one part of the swarm learned something, all parts knew it instantly. They had seen human weapons now. They were already changing. New bioships emerged from the back of the swarm. These ones had thicker shells, different shapes. They had evolved in minutes to resist human attacks. Captain Choi Minho watched his weapons bounce off the new Kreth ships. They are adapting, he said to Lieutenant Bayek Sujin. Our plasma cannons are less effective. Sujin was already running calculations. Switch to kinetic weapons. They can evolve to resist energy, but they cannot evolve to resist mass. Hit them harder. The Guangato's railguns opened fire. Chunks of metal the size of cars flew across space at impossible speeds. When they hit the Kreth bioships, they tore through them like paper. But for every Kreth ship that died, 10 more took its place. The battle became chaos. Human ships dodged and weaved through clouds of organic attackers. Fighters swarmed out of carriers, their small craft dancing between the massive bioships. Explosions lit up the darkness of space like a new constellation. The destroyer Ulsan was the first human ship to fall. A swarm of Kreth rammed it from all sides, cracking its hull open. The crew fought to the last moment, firing weapons even as their ship broke apart around them. "Ulsan is down," Yuna reported. Her voice was steady, but Do-Yun could hear the pain beneath it. 200 souls. "Keep fighting," Do-Yun replied. "Their sacrifice means nothing if we stop now." On the Guangato, Captain Minho was having problems of his own. A Kreth bioship had attached itself to his hull and was trying to eat through the armor. "Get that thing off my ship," he shouted. "I am trying, Captain." Sujin was firing point defense weapons at the creature, but it was too close. The small guns could not get a good angle. Minho made a decision. "All hands, brace for impact. Helm, rotate the ship hard to port and scrape that thing off against the debris field." The Guangato spun. Its hull slammed against the floating wreckage of a dead Kreth ship. Metal screamed. The attached bioship was torn away, but the impact threw everyone on the bridge to the floor. Minho pulled himself up. His left arm was wrong. He looked down and saw that it had been crushed against his console. Blood was pouring from the wound. "Captain!" Sujin rushed to him. "I am fine," Minho said through gritted teeth. He grabbed an emergency kit from the wall, pulled out a heated blade, and pressed it against his wound. The smell of burning flesh filled the bridge. He did not scream. "Get us back in the fight!" On the planet below, the ground war was just as brutal. General Han Wujin led the Marine divisions against Kreth that had already landed. The aliens were nightmares made flesh. Twisted combinations of insect and monster, with claws that could cut through armor and mouths that could dissolve metal. Human Marines met them with fire and steel. Private No Ha-Young was part of a defensive line protecting a Valari city. Her position was a broken wall that had once been part of a beautiful building. Now it was a fortress. The Kreth came in waves. They climbed over each other. They did not care about their own dead. They just kept coming. Ha-Young fired her rifle until it overheated. She switched to her sidearm and kept firing. When her ammunition ran out, she picked up a fallen Kreth claw and used it as a blade. "They just keep coming!" shouted the soldier next to her. His name was Sergeant Kang Dong-Yun. He was bleeding from a dozen small wounds, but he was still fighting. "Then we keep killing them!" Ha-Young shouted back. Hours passed. The sun rose and set. Still the battle continued. Ha-Young lost track of time. She lost track of how many Kreth she had killed. Her armor was cracked. Her body was covered in cuts and bruises. She could barely stand, but she did not stop. A massive Kreth warrior charged at her position. It was 3 times her size, with armored plates covering its body. Ha-Young threw herself at it, driving her improvised blade into its neck. The creature screamed and thrashed, throwing her against a wall. She hit the ground hard, her vision blurred. She could not breathe. The Kreth warrior loomed over her, its jaws opening wide. Then a figure appeared behind it. Sergeant Dong-Yun, with a plasma cutter meant for breaching doors. He drove it into the creature's back and held the trigger down. The Kreth burned from the inside out. Dong-Yun pulled Ha-Young to her feet. "You alive?" "Mostly," she gasped. "Thanks." "Thank me when we survive this." In orbit, the battle had reached its climax. The human fleet had been reduced to 150 ships. The Kreth swarm had lost millions of bioships, but millions more remained. Admiral Do-Hyun stood at the center of the chaos, calm as stone. "Admiral," Yuna said quietly. The Kreth are massing for a final assault. If they break through, they will reach the planet. Do-hyun nodded. Then we do not let them break through. He opened the fleet channel one last time. All ships, this is Admiral Park. I know you are tired. I know you are hurt. I know some of you are dying, but I need you to hold the line one more time, one more hour, one more fight. His voice grew stronger. The Valari are counting on us. The galaxy is watching. Today we show everyone what it means to be human. Today we do not break. Today we do not retreat. Today we stand. The final assault came. Kreth bioships poured toward the human line like a living tsunami. Human ships fired everything they had. The darkness of space became a storm of fire and death. The Gwangaito took a direct hit. Half the ship was destroyed in an instant. Captain Minho, his left arm gone, his body broken, stayed at his post and kept commanding until the ship finally died around him. But the line held. Ship after ship fell, but the human formation did not break. Every time a gap appeared, another ship moved to fill it. Every time a Kreth bioship got through, it was destroyed before it could reach the planet. And slowly, impossibly, the swarm began to thin. The Kreth hive mind had never experienced anything like this. Every species they had conquered had broken quickly. They had run. They had surrendered. They had died crying. These creatures did not break. They did not run. They kept fighting even when they were dying. They kept attacking even when victory seemed impossible. For the first time in their existence, the Kreth felt something new. Fear. The swarm retreated. Millions of surviving bioships turned and fled into the darkness of space. The hive mind could not understand what had happened, could not process the defeat, but they knew one thing for certain. They would never return to this system again. On the bridge of the Sejong the Great, Admiral Do-hyun watched the swarm disappear into hyperspace. His ship was damaged. His fleet was broken, but they had won. "It is over," Yuna said softly. She sounded like she could not believe it. "No," Do-hyun replied. His voice was tired but warm. "It is just beginning. The galaxy will hear about this. They will know what we did here." He looked at the planet below, at the world they had saved. "They will know that when the impossible happens, when the darkness comes, when there is no hope left, there is always one call that will be answered. The Deathworlders." The stars were quiet again. Where millions of Kreth bioships had blocked out the sky, now there was only the gentle darkness of space. Wreckage floated everywhere, broken ships, dead creatures, the debris of the greatest battle the galaxy had ever seen. But Valari Prime was alive. 7 billion Valari had survived. Cities still stood. Families were still together. A species that should have been extinct was still breathing, still hoping, still dreaming of tomorrow. Because the Deathworlders had come. Admiral Park Do-hyun walked through the medical bay of the Sejong the Great. The ship had taken heavy damage, but it was still functioning. The medical bay was full of wounded soldiers. Human and Valari doctors worked side by side, saving lives. He stopped at a bed where a young woman lay. It was Private No Ha-young. She was wrapped in bandages from head to toe. Her eyes were closed. The monitors beside her beeped steadily. "Will she live?" Do-hyun asked the doctor. "She will," the doctor replied. "She fought for 9 hours straight with a broken arm and 3 cracked ribs. By all rights, she should be dead." The doctor shook his head with wonder. "But she kept going. She held her position until reinforcements arrived." Do-hyun looked at the young soldier. 20 years old. She had never seen war before this week, and she had fought like a demon. "That is what we are," he said quietly. "We do not know when to quit." He continued through the bay, stopping to speak with wounded soldiers. Each one had a story. Each one had fought beyond what should have been possible. He was proud, of every single one of them. 43 ships destroyed, 12,000 humans dead. The cost had been high, but they had won. Ambassador Lyriel found Admiral Do Yun in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. She approached slowly. Still not entirely comfortable around humans. They were so large, so warm, so different from everything she had ever known. "Admiral," she said softly, "may I speak with you?" Do Yun turned and smiled. It was a tired smile, but genuine. "Of course, Ambassador. What is on your mind?" Lyriel stood beside him at the window. Together, they looked out at the peaceful stars. "I do not understand," she said finally. "You did not know us. We had never met before. The galaxy had locked you away and called you monsters. Why did you come? Why did your people die for mine?" Do Yun was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. "Ambassador, humans are strange creatures. We are capable of terrible things. Our history is full of wars and cruelty and destruction. The galaxy was right to be afraid of us." He turned to face her. "But we are also capable of something else, something that might be even stronger than our capacity for violence. We are capable of choosing who we fight for. We are capable of seeing someone in pain and deciding that their pain matters to us." Lyriel shook her head slowly. "But you gained nothing from this. You lost ships. You lost soldiers. You could have stayed safe on your world." "Safe is not the same as good," Do Hyun replied. "Your people were dying. You were afraid and alone. No one else would help you. What kind of species would we be if we heard your cry and did nothing?" He looked back at the stars. "Being human means making choices, and the choice we made was to stand between you and the darkness. We did not do it for reward. We did it because it was right." Lyriel felt something warm in her chest. Something she had not felt since the Kreth first arrived. Hope. "The galaxy will hear about this," she said. "The other species will know what you did." "Good. Maybe next time someone is in trouble, they will not have to call the monsters. Maybe next time, others will stand up too." In the days that followed, the Galactic Concord reversed its decision. The quarantine of Earth was lifted. For the first time in 40 years, humans were welcomed among the stars. The news of the battle spread to every corner of the galaxy. The Deathworlders had done the impossible. They had defeated the Kreth swarm. They had saved a species that everyone else had abandoned. The story changed how people saw humans. Before, they had only seen the violence, the wars, the terrible weapons. They had seen a species that was dangerous and unpredictable, and they had been afraid. Now, they saw something else. They saw soldiers dying to protect strangers. They saw doctors working through the night to save lives. They saw warriors who could have conquered the weak, choosing instead to defend them. Dr. Shin Yunji was invited to speak before the Galactic Concord Assembly. She stood at a podium, surrounded by representatives from 100 species. They all watched her with curious eyes. "You feared us," she began. "You looked at our world and saw a nightmare. You looked at our history and saw violence. And you were right. Earth is a hard world. We are a hard species. We evolved by surviving things that should have killed us." She paused and looked around the chamber. "But you made a mistake. You thought that because we were strong, we must be cruel. You thought that because we could kill, killing was all we were good for." She shook her head. "You were wrong. Our strength was never about destroying others. It was about protecting what we love. Every war we fought, every battle we won, was because we were defending something precious. Our families, our homes, our future." Her voice grew stronger. "The Vilari called us for help, and we answered. Not because we wanted their planet. Not because we wanted their resources. We answered because they were afraid and alone, and no one else would stand with them. She smiled. That is what humans are. We are the species that runs toward the fire. We are the species that stands in front of the storm. When the galaxy needs someone to hold the line, we are the ones who show up. The chamber was silent. Then, slowly, the applause began. Sergeant Yoon Ji-woo stayed on Valari Prime to help with the rebuilding. She worked alongside Valari construction crews, her human strength making easy work of heavy lifting that would have taken them hours. The little girl she had met on the space station found her again. Her name was Miri. She followed Ji-woo everywhere, asking endless questions about Earth and humans and everything in between. Ji-woo, Miri asked one day, when you go back to Earth, will you remember us? Ji-woo knelt down to look the child in the eyes. Always, she said. You are part of my story now, and humans never forget the people we have protected. Miri smiled. I want to be like you when I grow up, strong and brave. You already are brave, Ji-woo said. Bravery is not about being big. It is about choosing to do the right thing, even when you are scared. And you did that. You survived. You helped your family survive. That makes you the bravest person I know. The child hugged her. Ji-woo hugged back, careful not to squeeze too hard. Valari were fragile, but their hearts were strong. Somewhere in deep space, the remnants of the Kreth swarm drifted aimlessly. The hive mind was damaged, confused. It had consumed 100 worlds without resistance. It had grown to believe that nothing could stop it, that it was the apex of all life. Now it knew differently. There was a species that did not break, a species that fought when victory was impossible, a species that burned brighter the darker things became. The swarm had a new concept in its collective consciousness, a concept it had never needed before. Caution. It would spread the word to other swarms across the galaxy. It would warn them about the small blue planet and its terrifying inhabitants. It would make sure that no Kreth ever went near that system again. The Deathworlders were not prey. They were something else entirely. Admiral Park Do-hyun returned to Earth as a hero. Crowds gathered to welcome him home. Leaders praised his courage. Songs were written about the battle. But Do-hyun did not care about fame. He cared about the 12,000 soldiers who had not come home. He visited their families one by one. He looked into their eyes and told them that their children had died with honor, that their sacrifice had saved billions. It did not make the pain go away, but it gave it meaning. On his last night before retirement, Do-hyun sat on his porch and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Valari were rebuilding their world. Somewhere out there, other species were looking at humans with new eyes. Commander Kim Yuna sat beside him. They had served together for decades. They had been through more than most people could imagine. Do you think we change things? She asked. Do you think the galaxy sees us differently now? Do-hyun was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. Maybe, maybe not. But that is not the point. The point is that when someone called for help, we answered. When the darkness came, we brought light. That is who we are. That is who we have always been. He looked up at the stars one last time. We are humans, Deathworlders, children of a world that tried to kill us every day, and we chose to use that strength to protect others. Whatever happens next, no one can take that away from us. Yuna nodded slowly. So, what do we do now? Do-hyun laughed softly. We wait. Somewhere out there, someone else will need help. Someone else will face impossible odds. And when they call, he stood up and stretched his old bones. We will answer again. That is what Deathworlders do. The stars twinkled in the darkness. Somewhere, someone was in trouble, and somewhere, humans were ready to help.